one thing I did want to go into was this idea of shame and what your opinion is on it, because um, I'm wondering, does the shame have any place? Does it have a good? Does it have any good sides to it? Bringing myself into this, for example, like shame. I believe got me out of alcoholism because I was, at one point I was drinking and driving, and I was feeling all this, shame about. I lost some friends over it. And I think that ultimately led to a good result. But what are your thoughts on shame? And do you think there are ways that it can benefit us in some ways? And how do people get over shame if there's too much of it, if they're having an unhealthy amount of it?
Big topic.
Hmm.
Remember what I said to you about the formation of the human psyche? Remember, in a moment of trauma, the negative self perception is what holds the child hostage. Well, when we perceive that there's something wrong with us, what's the next emotion that we're going to feel? Shame. Okay. So shame is not inherent to us in that moment. Shame is something we experience about ourselves, but it was told to us by somebody else. So we feel a shame in that moment for what? For being who we are. Look at this. So if I take the word shame and translate that into another word or energy, it means the feeling of disappointment and inability to really be myself. And then shame is like an energy that binds us into the negative self-perception. So it's like more glue to it. And then guilt also comes into it. And what's guilt and shame all about? It's keeping the negative self-perception going, right? So that's the function of them inside the child's experience. We'll talk about adults and maybe if there's a positive function on it, we'll talk a little bit later. But this is the shame that's built in within the psyche, within each individual. You understand? So a lot of times people use either shame or guilt as the way that they describe, like, oh, I felt guilty or I feel shame. And what you see with them, more trauma, more negative self-perception, a lack of really feeling, if you ask somebody like, hey, and you meet somebody who's been doing the good work on themselves and they're like, I'm good with me, they're not going to have shame or guilt. And even if you ask them, do you, when you look back on your life, are there moments that you maybe regret and stuff? Like, I thought this to myself. If somebody asked me, hey, Alex, are there moments in your life that you're unhappy about? I'm going to say this. I will look at every one of those moments and it will not be with shame and guilt at all. It will be a deep understanding of myself at that moment in that history of time. I'm compassionate to my own levels of awareness and development at each phase in my life. And yes, are there moments that if I have, this insight now to say I would have done it differently? Of course. I mean, we could all say that about our life. But the one thing I don't ever have is shame or guilt about it. But I do have a deep yearning then to try not to repeat that again. So that's the key to the shame there. Is there a value in shame? So let's talk about your situation for a minute because you bring an interesting point. So it goes like this. You said that you felt that it was the shame that got you to quit, right? That's what you said.
Yeah, I think if anything, I guess maybe a better word would be a catalyst, I suppose, for it.
Okay, so how? Can you describe the mechanics of the shame as the catalyst?
Um, I guess the best way to describe it would be I was in a situation where the next morning when I woke up, I had lost two or three pretty close friends to me. And I started realizing that drinking wasn't just affecting me anymore. I was okay if it killed me at that time. But once it started affecting other people, because I thought I had gotten rid of that effect when I stopped drinking and driving, I thought, oh, now other people aren't involved and I can do what I want to myself and nobody will be hurt. So I think in that sense, that's where the shame kind of came in, was the fact that all of a sudden I realized my actions were affecting more than just myself, and that kind of like what you had said a little bit earlier was that I needed to kind of change.
All right, so let me break that down and remove the word shame,
Mm-hmm.
because really what's happened is this. Let's look at the mechanics. I
Mm.
like to discuss mechanics. You didn't like that you lost your friends, correct?
Mm-hmm.
The not liking of that made you reflect to see, wait a second, am I doing something that's causing them to not want to be with me? And the answer was yes. So you made a decision on what was more important to you, the experiencing of the drugs or the experiencing of the friendships, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that really what was going on?
That's interesting. So it almost sounds like when we view things as shameful, it just creates a cage where it just kind of
A
stays.
cage. It's a
Yeah.
cage.
And
It's a
so
cage.
whereas if it we're looking at it in with context, I think that's the main key that you're talking about right now
That's right.
is context, right? I was at a terrible point in my life and all that kind of stuff. And so when
And you
if I
weren't happy. You weren't happy with what you became.
mm-hmm.
But the fact is, look at the crux of that. Who is the one who became unhappy with yourself? Were there two yous or there's one you? See, so what happened was this: that your true self, your true nature
Mm-hmm.
was no longer no longer sort of say able to just to be squashed, right? And part of our true nature is enjoying the closeness of these relationships. So part of what you really wanted, which was aligned with who you are, was these friends. And since the alignment of who you are was broken, that created shame. In this case, I'm not liking the way I'm going and becoming this way. Do you see how I'm breaking it down? It's very important to understand that.
Yeah, it definitely sounds because I feel like sometimes shame can be used to stop the argument or stop the conversation at that point. And so, kind of like when you call somebody evil, right? Like it just kind of stops all reflection on what has happened and what led to a
That's right.
person to that place. And I think,
That's right.
that's actually very like enlightening. I'm learning quite a bit in this interview, and I think that's. That's why I love to do these so much is when you get people from different backgrounds, they can kind of shed a light differently on what you think about, and I thought about that question a lot about the whole time travel, like if you had a time traveling machine, would you go back and change this or that? And I've always said no, just because I
It wouldn't be who I am.
exactly, but I never actually thought about the idea of, even without that time traveling machine, it seems like there are still parts of my life where I'm still looking back with shame, right? And so
Yeah.
it's yeah, so I think that's definitely a good point. I'm writing notes in the
Let,
background, kind
let,
of
let,
just
let,
yeah.
let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Um, why not look at them with love? What would be the difference? Why shame as the lens for reviewing? Who said that that's the only option that you have to review your past?
Hmm.
Baskin
Huh.
Robbins has what? Baskin Robbins has 32 flavors. Well, who said the only way to review my past is through shame?
Hmm.
Why not tenderness? Why not love? Why not rage? Why not hate? I mean, I can come up with why.
Hmm.
Because that's the lens you're familiar with.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Mental Health Casual. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos.